So it's going to be on urban ecotourism destinations. We are looking into exploring the potential of our city, which is Kota Kinabalu, in whether it can be a ecotourism sites or not. Okay, so good afternoon again, everyone. So this is actually it's our from our student, which is Natana, and also supervised by myself and also by Dr. Fifi Sakim. So, but they are from the Institute of Tropical Biology and Conservation, and I'm from the School of Business and Economics. Right. So, just to a brief introductions, what what this is presentation is all about. We do know that ecotourism is widely available in Malaysia, and but when you talk about ecotourism, the first thing that you talking about would be a rural area. But then again, if you look into ecotourism component, one, it has to be conserving nature resources. One is enjoyment of nature and learning about it, and one is to help local people or local community. So it can be in any setting, and it can be on urban as well. So that's why we want to do urban when we decided on doing this. So basically, we want the city which we live in and which we love also wants to be. We want the city to be sustainable as well. And being an urban ecotourism destination can make it very sustainable. So on the literature review, there's a lot of mention about urban green spaces and how do you manage the green spaces as well. And one of the things that very important that sometimes you forget that humans are actually also one of the important assets in a city because they are the one who actually going to make it better. Or you can make it worse, obviously, but you can make it better. A human can make it better as well. So we also want to know whether the population of the city are willing to preserve or conserve the city biodiversity, if they want to make it as ecotourism destinations as well. And then one of the good thing as well that we wanted to know, I mean, if you talk to any agencies, governments, and other scholars as well, when you want to do conservation, one thing that you want to know, there's two things that people want to ask, you know. The first one is actually how much are we sacrificing and how much is going to cost us. So these are the things that we get from the literature review. And then, of course, the interesting part about this research is basically it's the methodology. It's actually the thesis is actually doing on the multi method. It's not a mixed method; it's a multi method, meaning that we run qualitative and quantitative methodology at the same time, not as a, not as a sequence. All right. Basically, what we want to do is to focus on whether the city can become a urban ecotourism site. Okay, so we decided that we want to do a primary and secondary data, and then of course data we collect on surveys, especially for the tourists because tourists there's a lot. So the best one would be survey, and um, also the advocates of tourism like the governments. So there we're using not survey but on interviews. All right. So the questionnaire, we keep it anonymous, basically. So we got actually 386, people from KK, Kota Kinabalu, and also we also get from tourists as well there, and also residents too, because they basically are not local, but they are, residing in KK or in Kota Kinabalu for various reasons. Okay, so I think this is actually more important. I think the results. Okay, the first one, what the results are, the first one would be the perceptions and value regarding urban ecotourism, whether they like it or not, whether they want it or not. Okay, so basically the result that we get, they want to have natural biodiversity in Sabah. They want to have, or at least conserve what we have now in the city and in the states. And then they also basically are kind of like looking forward to or looking into or attracted to wildlife or flowers or underwater plants and things like that. And obviously when the tourists come here, this is what they're looking for as well. I mean, Kota Kinabalu is such a natural destinations, nature destinations, that people don't come here for shopping. I mean, there's nothing, if you want to go shopping, I mean, you can really go to Hong Kong, which is around 3 hours away, or KL, 2 hours away, or Singapore, 2 hours away, and that kind of thing. So people go here for the wildlife, for the nature. And then, of course, they want the city to have like a world-class level, and then they want to be unique as well. Okay, and then again, also one of the thing is when you experience nature, it has to be really close to you, your environment, and so on. And obviously, when we talk about that, they were like, okay, yes, we know what you have here, but it's also important for you to have activities. You also need to have like things to do, and and thing or events and so on. Okay. And then, of course, being an ecotourism city is kind of new in Malaysia. I mean, obviously, there are one city which is typing small city. There's very sustainable city also that also can actually something to be. They can also be considered as ecotourism too. So it's not something. It is not something common, but it is not something new also. And then, of course, but one of the great thing about this city is actually they have multicultural diversity. We have more than 38 races and languages in the city. So this is actually kind of like a very big component, or actually can enhance the component of ecotourism. And then, of course, the second result would be on the access to destinations. So the first one is actually the thing about access is that people actually, if you want to develop as a destinations, it should be very easy for people to go in. So, so basically, access is important. Well, the thing is, air access for us is no problem, but again, in terms of other destinations, as a competing as destinations, it would be a bit difficult because we're competing with places like the Philippines or places like Bali or like Thailand also. So in because those are very acceptable places also with similar products. So the access for us now is okay, but there's also a destination that's going to be have a similar access as well. And then I think another one on the results is the ecotourism destination settings. Basically, they wanted to see whether the settings are actually what kind of settings that they wanted to. So the size of the green spaces actually really matters to the respondents. Okay, but the thing is, for the residents, what they want is actually a small size, more of a like scattered all around the city because there's more things to do, or more things to see, or more places to visit. I mean, obviously, the tourists are like, okay, we just want like one big places because tourists they just come, they just temporary, so they just go in there, see everything, and go out, and that's fine with us, with them. But for the residents, we want more because we live here. So what we're not, what the residents want is actually to basically have more things, even but smaller size. Okay, so basically what they want is also again when they said like we want more, it's because they again they said like it could be good for the tourists as well because if there are more things to see, then the tourists can stay longer or can become a repeat visitor and so on. Okay, so so these are again so when you talk about the sizes also that we actually look into the policy, and the green spaces for the minimal one to consider as a green space in the cities 12.12 8.5 acres. So that's actually, in a way, for a city, is actually quite big. And then, of course, the last result would be how the attitude of the locals on in conservations. Basically, the tourists, they're very happy with their travel because they are, they can interact with local communities, and of course, when they can do that, then actually they are, they have what they come for. I mean, they get away from their old life, and then they go into here, and then they have, something to live like locals, or to have like a view of a locals as well. And then of course, the basically, if you but for the local residents, the one live in the city center, they were not very kind of like, yeah, we do want to become ecotourism destination, but it shouldn't really affect us that much because they live in the city, in a CBD. But for the suburban, which is like still in the city but just outside, they actually are more willing to change, or more willing to be involved in decision making, because they are actually living around the nature and things like that. So basically, both community, they do want these things, but the willingness to work for it would be different from the inner city or the central city or CBD, compared to the suburban. So in conclusions, basically, what we got from this research is actually, we do think that Kota Kinabalu can become an ecotourism urban destinations. It has the right box to tick as well. Excuse me. And then of course, and also we also get to know, the tourism stakeholders may want to use our research in understanding the potential market. And also we'll see that if this research also will become useful for the government as well, especially for the local council, local city hall, because they are the one who's going to be responsible to develop this as the city as a tourism sites. So that is all for me today. So I think the recommendations basically is, again, just helping, the advocates, government, and private sector as well, to identify what kind of the new product or the next product that you can promote in the city. So that is all from me. Thank you very much for listening.